time once again to slip into your camo, grab your bow, and join us out in the field for another episode of the Up North Journal, presented by PSE Archery. The Up North Journal crew is knocked and ready to rock for another exciting adventure. So let's step outside and hit the trail.
This episode of the Up North Journal podcast is brought to you by PSE Archery,
Deer Camp Coffee,
Buck Baits,
JPO Game Calls,
The Island Armory,
Hacker Max,
Sunrise Archery,
and C3 Better the Hunt Technology.
Welcome back to another episode of the Up North Journal, everybody. Host Mike Adams sitting in the cabin tonight with none other than Dan DeFall.
That's right. We're sitting here in a nice, dry cabin. It's a little rainy out, obviously, this week being 75 yesterday. A little bit of change of weather today.
Yeah, just a little bit. I'm ready for fall.
You know, that we had a cold front come through last Friday. It looked like a few people went out hunting and did pretty good, I saw on Facebook.
I'm going to try to get out this week.
Right, that's exactly. If not, it'll be a couple weeks for me, but I know Adam Wynn's been out. I think Mark Coleman's been out, so it's all good. We're getting there. We're getting into that prime time, folks. We're getting towards Halloween.
Well, I'll tell you what. Let's talk about some of our sponsors here, and let's save some people some money.
Absolutely. I tell you what, folks. With Buck Baits, you can't go wrong. It's that time of year. Why don't you go over to their website at buckbaits.com and use our promo code UNJ20. You'll get 20% off your order. Check out the website. It is constantly changing every day. I tell you, Mark Coleman's a fanatic Easy Cut user, and we've seen him and how he used it down on the farm. And if you want 15% off your order, use the promo code UNJ15OFF and easycutproducts.com, and you'll get 15% over there.
I think he cut down half the Indiana Hoosier State Forest with his Easy Cuts.
I know that guy. Sometimes it's like, dude, you gotta stop. Man. Packer Max. I tell you what, no better time than to start thinking. You finished up your fall plots. You're going to go out and do some hunting with it. Start thinking about next spring. Get over to packermax.com. You get $25 off your order if you use the promo code UNJ25 over there. Oh, we would not be a misfire if we didn't talk about, see what I did there?
I see what you did there.
TheIslandarmory.com. I tell you what, I was just texting with Natalie, matter of fact, and they're going good over there at Island Armory. Check the website every day. It changes. They've got new stuff coming in. You want 10% off your order. Use the promo code UNJ10. You'll get 10% off your order over there. Welcome again to the Up North Journal. We had him on Last week, Scott from Missouri, Troublesome Creek Taxidermy. I posted a picture of a mount that he finished up on our webpage or on Facebook. Check it out. If you want promo code UNJ10, you'll get 10% off your mount over there. JPO Game Calls, whether you're getting out doing some yote hunting, maybe some deer hunting, you need those calls, get over to jpogamecalls.com. UNJ10 gets you 10% over there. And I don't know how this guy is sleeping. Miller Deer Tracking, I don't know if he slept at all in the last week. But if you want 20% off your next deer tracking event with him, get over there to UNJ20. He'll give you 20% off. Give him a call. If he can't get to you, he'll hopefully get you on the list to get you somebody that will help you. Still not hard water here, so you can still think about Southern Bait, Indiana Bait Co. Get 10% off your order there, UNJ10. Last but not least, ladies and gentlemen, Mike Adams is drinking pumpkin spice tonight.
No, I'm drinking Blaze Orange.
A.K.A. pumpkin spice from Deer Camp Coffee. DeerCampCoffee.com. Use the promo code UNJ10. Get 10% off your order over there. And let's go way up to Newberry, where it's 45 and not sunny. It looks a little bit rainy to me. And if you get over to Cedars there, get a pizza, go get some Deer Camp coffee, have a seat, enjoy the Upper Peninsula up in Newberry as we're carried on 123 FM up there.
All right. Well, we got that all the way.
I tell you.
That's a mouthful.
It is a mouthful.
And, the mount we got right here, this is from Troublesome Creek. We had them on last week, and this is the mount that they sent to us here to display proudly upon the set here. So take a look at that, and you can see just how good a work they do over there. So, all right, well, we kind of teased the show tonight.
We did.
About taking a long walk.
Yeah, it's not one of those long walks. You just kind of walk out the door and keep on going.
No, I don't think so. But, I think she's got a new pair of shoes on, but we want to welcome Haley Andrus to the show tonight. Haley, how you doing all the way from Grand Rapids?
I'm fantastic. I'm excited to be here.
Well, thanks for joining us tonight. We got some fun stuff to talk about. for those of you who don't know, Haley took this really long hiking adventure and started from one side of the mitten and walked all the way around the waterline, basically, of the Lower Peninsula, started at Ohio and wound up at the far side in Indiana. Not across the bottom of the mitten, but all the way around the mitten. All the way up, around the thumb, all the way up
Walk the shoreline.
Yep, all the way up to the Mackinac Straits and all the way back down.
I tell you what, that's pretty cool. And how long did it take you?
So it took 67 walking days, technically. So I started May 15th, and my end date was the end of the day on August 5th. So there was a couple breaks in there. I went home for some long weekends. But yeah, total 67 days of boots on the ground, literally.
All right, 67 days of walking around Michigan. All right, you got to give us a little information as to how did you prepare, or how did you come up with this idea to even want to do this?
Sure. Yeah. So I knew that I wanted to do a long trail at some point. So a lot of people might have heard of the Pacific Crest Trail, the Appalachian Trail. So these are all national scenic trails that extend for miles and miles and miles around parts of our country. So I knew I wanted to do something like that someday. But I came up with this idea in November of 2020. My mom and I were at a park on the west side of the state, just walking along the beach on part of one of the trails there, just kind of joking back and forth, like, oh, this is so nice. I could walk on the beach forever. So kind of joking back and forth. We're like, I wonder if anybody's ever done that. Did a little bit of Google research when I got home and figured out that nobody had actually walked the whole thing all in one go. So I did some research, a couple weeks worth of research, honestly, and decided to give it a try.
Well, now a little bit of background. You just didn't take this up and go, I want to do this. You've obviously got some experience in the outdoors, whether it be hiking, cross-country skiing, snowshoeing, whatever. You've had to have done something because you got to be athletic for this. So what's your background?
Sure. Yeah. So we grew up pretty outdoorsy. I grew up here in West Michigan, and my parents took us outside hiking, camping, biking, all throughout the years growing up. And then after I graduated college, I actually moved out west to Jackson Hole, Wyoming. So that's really where my love for the outdoors really was cemented. So I spent a ton of time hiking, lots of camping out there, in the Tetons with my backyard. So honestly, you can't get any better than that. And then in the winters, a bunch of, like you mentioned, cross-country skiing, snowshoeing. So I've always been a relatively active individual. So
did you do any track running or anything like that in high school?
I did. I was actually a cheerleader for 3 years, and then I ran track for one season in middle school. But I have been into like recreational running here and there over the years. So
so there's a good foundation.
There's definitely a foundation. Now, when you thought about doing this, and was there some kind of training? You said You said you started in the previous year thinking about it, but you didn't wait until May, right? And was there any training in between that you're like, okay, I'm going to need to do this?
Yeah, that's a good question. So there was a little bit. When I first came up with the idea and was looking at the feasibility of it, I knew that I wanted to have some sort of additional backpacking experience underneath my belt. So as we were just talking about my background, before this trip, I had spent no more than 2 nights consecutively on a backpacking trip. I hadn't even done like a 7-day backpacking trip in my entire life. So I knew that I wanted to do a little bit more sleeping in the outdoors before I left for this. And then obviously I had to get my feet, my legs, my back, etc. ready. So I started right around like January or so of this past year. And I would make sure that I was walking, 2 or 3 miles a day, at least 4 or 5 times a week, then kind of bumped that up week after week after week. So right before I left, I was walking anywhere from 6 to 10 miles a day, at least 6 days a week. And starting in April, I started adding more and more weight to my pack. So at first I was walking no weight on my back, and then I would add, a couple books, add some gear to my backpack. So eventually I was walking those miles per week with about 15 pounds on my back.
Okay, so then as you started to do that, did you start making a list of what you were going to take on your journey?
Yeah, I'm super detail oriented. So I had this list of stuff going, honestly, like as soon as I came up with this idea, because outdoor gear is expensive, as you guys know. So I wanted to have an idea, like budget wise, how much I was going to have to spend on some of this stuff. And then, yes, trying to get an idea of how I could cut that weight, or, me being who I am, I wanted like some luxury items, like what I could afford weight wise to put on my back. So I had a list going pretty early on.
All right, cool. Now, one of the questions that we got in the chat room is did you do this all solo, or did you have a team with you?
Yeah, so I was solo like 98% of the time. I had such a great support system back at home, out in Wyoming. I had so many people who were kind of cheering me on from the sidelines. But physically, I was mostly solo. And then my boyfriend joined me for a little bit. My mom actually joined me for 4 or 5 days. So I had some company here and there.
And Nancy's feeling gym shamed.
Okay, good. She didn't go to the she didn't go to the gym tonight, so now
right. And so you're starting to build up your stamina, getting in. You're doing this. You started in January, so you're doing it through the cold months in Michigan, and you ended up doing it 67 days, so that's from May, and that you did it during the summer. Mm-hmm. So with that being said, now did you keep a journal at all?
I did, yes. Each day I would kind of note down what I saw, how I was feeling that day, anything that passed through my mind. That's a lot of time to spend with, the only company as your brain. So had a lot of thoughts throughout the whole thing. So yeah, I did keep a journal. I would post on Instagram, Facebook, stuff like that every couple of days as well to kind of update folks on what I was doing.
Okay, that brings to mind a question I just thought of. So, okay, you're out there walking, you got 67 days on the ground. I know when I'm sitting in a tree stand and hunting, or if I'm sitting on the ice fishing, and I'm by myself, it stuff starts to go through your head, and you can actually kind of go a little stir crazy at times if you sit there too long. What did you do to keep focused and keep your mind on the task at hand? Were you listening to music, or were you just taking in the sight, stopping, taking photographs? There had to be something you had to do to help pass the time other than just step after step after step.
Definitely. Yeah. I tried to spend the first half of the day kind of just with my thoughts, doing like walking meditations, or, just ruminating, or just letting my mind wander. Hiking for me is such a flow state activity that I can kind of get out of my head and just not think about anything. But yeah, starting at about like lunchtime is when your feet start to hurt. You've got your first miles underneath you. So that's when like audiobooks, podcasts, calling friends, listening to music, that would get me through, especially the last like 5 to 7 miles to camp.
So did you have a specific number each day you were walking of miles?
Yeah, actually, the first thing that I did when I was researching the feasibility of this is I listed out all of the campgrounds or potential lodging opportunities to see how many miles apart they were. So I actually I had the entire route planned out before I even took the first step. So yes, at first I started with an average of like 8 to 10 miles a day. And then as I was a couple weeks in, my daily average was around 15-ish or so, bumped it up to 18. And then the last 2-ish weeks or so, I was doing on average almost 20 miles a day. So yes, I did have an exact route planned out. I knew where I was going to be staying every single night. Well,
that being said, that's something I just didn't even think about. There's state parks all over the state of Michigan, state campgrounds and private campgrounds and things of that nature. But there might be bigger distances between one or the other. I mean, we think about just getting in our car or our truck, hooking up the camper and going. I couldn't imagine. So you'd have to have that planned out.
Right. So with that, with your destination from point A to point B for that day, on average, how many hours did it take you?
So anywhere from usually like 4 to 10 hours. It's kind of a wide span, sorry. But yeah, some of the days would be, just a couple miles worth of walking, and others, if I was walking a full like 18 or 19 miles, like if I'm only walking, 3 miles an hour on average, like it's going to take me a while. So it's usually a full day activity.
Well, like you said, it was, sometimes 4 to 10 hours, but those 4-hour days is a good mental break too. It's like, okay, good day to shut down and just get to your campground, wherever your destination was for that day, and just kind of, get ready for the next day and mentally prepare yourself for that day. We're coming up on our first break. When we come back, we're going to start that journey, by Ohio, and we're going to start walking through Michigan, and we'll start there, and we'll be back after this.
All right, we're going to take a quick step outside. We'll be right back after this.
PSE Archery has reinvented the way you buy bows. From now on, you can make the most educated decision possible
by basing your boat choice specifically on your shooting needs and goals.
All you need to do is ask yourself, what kind of shooter am I? What do I want to achieve?
PSE will help find the right category for you.
So, what kind of shooter are you?
Find out at psearchery.com.
Welcome back, second segment of the show. Okay, so we've kind of got a few of the logistics and a little bit of the background out of the way, some things to think about, but now we really got to start. So
you spent 4 months training, 5-6 months of planning, and now you've come to that day. Big send off. You drop the car off and say, "I'll pick you up in 67 days in a while," or
pick you up in Indiana,
right? How did that? Did was there bands playing, red carpet? How did it all start?
Yeah, the first day was such a mix of emotions. I was so antsy to get going, but I only had, it was less than 5 miles, I think, to walk on that first day. And so I didn't want to get there too early because then I would have to just, sit for the rest of the day. So that morning I was just in a fit. Like I didn't know what to do with myself. So it was just my parents and my boyfriend that ended up dropping me off, which was great. I didn't want like a huge send off because, I'm not a big fan of being the center of attention, but at the same time, I still had these doubts in my mind. Like, what if I can't do it? Like, I don't want to make a huge deal out of like the first day because what if I quit 48 hours in? Like, I definitely did have that in the back of my mind. But honestly, like once I started walking, it felt so right. And I couldn't put my finger on why, but I just felt so good getting those first couple steps in. They drove the car past and I waved as they went by. And that first night was stealth camping. So I just had to find a place to set up my tent, and I did that right in time for almost 12 hours worth of thunderstorms, high winds, hail, rain, etc. on the very first night that I was out there.
So was that the worst type of weather you encountered on this trip? Was thunderstorms and high winds?
Honestly, yeah. And that very first night was probably the worst of it. I got so lucky with weather. I don't know how I did it, but the first night was by far the worst night of thunderstorms. So it only got better from there.
Well, you got that out of the way, right?
I know.
And your tent didn't leak?
It did. I learned a lot that first night.
All right.
So you're laying there and trying to sleep, but the tent's leaking, it's raining, it's nasty, it's blowing. Were you ready to throw in the towel at that point?
Not necessarily, because at that point I would still, just smile to myself and say, like, I'm out here, like, I'm doing it. After a year and a half of planning this, like, I'm doing it. I'm here. There was a big sense of like imposter syndrome. Like, am I the right person to do this? Like, can I actually see this through? But as of right then, I think it was still so new that I could muscle through it.
Okay. Well, talking about the thunderstorm, you sent us a picture here. There's a blue tarp, your sleeping bag's on it, and you're in a garage. What was that? Another weather event?
That was, yeah. So that was actually in Leland. So as we're talking about like camping logistics, etc., if there was a big stretch in which there was no camping or like affordable lodging that I wanted to lay out for, I would actually give churches a call. And I ended up staying in the backyard of just a couple churches, such kind, generous people who were willing to help me out. And this particular one in Leland, they were so kind. There was supposed to be like just torrential rain all night, and they offered up their garage of the church and put a nice little tarp down for me, and it was a very cozy setup.
That's awesome. Well, sometimes you just got to rely on the kindness of other people to get you through a tough spot, and that's just in life even. So
exactly, yeah.
So you start out, you get that first day under your belt, and you're walking along the shores. How often, like that first day, did you get to right to Lake Erie and walk the shoreline, or were you kind of walking roads? Talk about that first stretch there.
Yeah, definitely. So I saw Lake Erie just a couple miles into my first day. And then honestly, I did not see water again for a little bit. I would catch glimpses here and there, but all the way up the thumb. It wasn't actually until Caseville, which is towards the top of the thumb there, that I was able to do any sort of beach walking. So that whole first stretch, almost 2 full weeks, I think, was all on roads, sidewalks, etc.
So the southeast part of Michigan, I got to imagine, especially Detroit, Toledo area, all the way up to Port Huron, a lot of industry, river traffic, things like
coming
that.
Up downriver and that.
Yeah.
Did you when you got to Detroit? Did you walk along the Detroit River through Detroit?
I did, yes. So I walked through as close as possible. So I was walking down like a very heavily industried street. Then it took me through some of the neighborhoods in South Detroit. And then, yes, I was eventually walking along that river pathway that starts like kind of right in the heart of downtown and heading north.
Yep, exactly. And you walk right in front of Renson, and you keep going up. And then I imagine as you got up into the Macomb County area, you started, as you get further, like you said, further into the thumb, you started to kind of get away. You followed the roads and Lakeshore Drive and whatnot, so you can see it here and there. But along the way, you're starting out. It took you 2 weeks to get to the thumb.
Yeah, I can actually tell you guys exactly when, because those first couple days are definitely a little bit slower. It had like shorter mileages there. But yeah, let's see if I can find an exact date here. But I would say, probably just under 2 weeks or so. I was to Detroit on the 4th night of the trip. So
okay,
yeah.
When you got up to Caseville and you actually could walk along the beach, what was there a sense of like, yeah, this is it. This is what I came for. This is awesome. I mean, what was going through your mind when you hit the beach for that first time?
Definitely. Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. It was absolute elation. I had done some training where I was actually walking on the sand itself over on the west side. But honestly, like the first time that I could do more than a mile actually walking on the beach was absolutely incredible. Very emotional. And yeah, you're just listening to the waves and knowing that like this is what I'm going to be hearing for the rest of the time out here. Like this is going to be the soundtrack to this whole trip.
So as you're walking these beaches around Michigan or wherever you might be walking a street or whatever, did you ever get yelled at for trespassing?
No, actually, I got so lucky. Nothing like that. I had plenty of people as I was walking through their property, as it is legal to walk up to that high water line. I had plenty of people just, give me a wave, ask me what I was up to. Never anybody angry that I was walking through their property, which was great.
So the first time somebody said, hey, what are you up to? And you said, I'm walking around the Lower Peninsula, around the water line. What was the reaction?
Most everybody was just dumbfounded. Like, I'm sorry, you're doing what? Why was always the second question.
Yeah.
And then, people would ask questions about how far I was walking, how much my pack weighed, etc. But honestly, I talked to at least 2 people a day, almost every single day. I don't think there was a single day in which I didn't talk to at least one person. So everyone was just so excited, which is great.
So with that being said, you talking to a lot of people, did you meet anyone unique along the way?
Oh, plenty. Yeah. I mean, every single person had their own reaction and had their own like stories alongside it or had their own way to relate to it. And, that was one of the biggest things about me doing this trip is I genuinely wanted to talk to the people of Michigan about the lakes, how they interact with the outdoors in this state. So, getting to talk to people who might live along the water or getting to talk to people who were just renting a cabin for 2 nights. They had never stayed exactly on the lakeshore. That was the first time that they were able to wake up to the sound of the waves. That was my favorite part, is just being able to talk to the people and how they interacted with the lake itself. And everyone has their own individual story. So,
did you expect that reaction, or is that something you just come to realize as you started talking to these people?
I think it's something that I just came to realize. I knew that people would be excited, and I knew that people would question why I was doing what I was doing, but I didn't expect such genuine interest and such genuine care that I received along the way. So
you're talking about interest. Did you have any like newspaper or TV station or radio stations kind of following your trip and working with you along the way so you could report back to where you're at or anything like that?
I didn't. I was a little hesitant to do that just for safety reasons.
Sure.
All of the posts that I was putting out to Instagram, Facebook, etc., were all at least 10 days behind, just for, those safety concerns. I did have a gentleman on the east side. He was a freelance photographer out of Bad Axe, Michigan, and he took a picture of me, and it was on the front page of the Huron Daily Tribune, and that was the first media attention that I got on this whole trip, which was pretty early on. So that was fun. That was a good fuel.
Yeah, you're talking about safety. I was just thinking when you're talking about walking through Detroit in the neighborhoods, I'm like, yeesh. I wouldn't have been walking. I'd have been running.
Yeah, you might want to sprint it that area.
Yeah.
So you made it to Caseville in 2 weeks. Now you're coming down the inside of the Mid, and then you're going to go around the Saginaw Bay City area, and you're going to start heading up that way. Getting through another stretch with big city industry and everything. How was that going around that little hook right there?
That was interesting for sure. It's a lot more like marshy, I guess, than I expected.
Mm-hmm.
And it was fun to see like the type of the people change along the way. So, I have the people down by Ohio, a little bit different than the people in Detroit, a little bit different than Bay City, than Traverse City, than, Grand Rapids. So, just a little bit different folk. So kind, so fun. And I actually did enjoy that area. I was lucky enough to be in Sebewing the weekend that there was a big bow fishing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I had no idea what that was, but there was just all these people outside with these big boats and their bows, etc. And I got to talk to them about
what are you doing, right? Bunch of guys and gals with lights on their boats zipping out into the water at night.
Yeah.
And you're like, what is going on, right? Okay, so you now are in marshy area. Another question we have is, besides the unique types of people, did you experience any animals on the way that you might have, cool or type instances?
I think I got really lucky with the wildlife. I was hoping to see a porcupine. That was the one animal that I really wanted to see. I did not see a live porcupine on the trip, so it was a little bit disappointing. The only the close animal encounter that I had was a raccoon in my campsite. And that was an experience for sure. Got a little bit too close for comfort. And then I was in Alabaster, which is just a little tiny city as I was heading up north on like the Mitten portion, getting out of Saginaw Bay. And I had set up my tent in the backyard of this church, and there was nobody else around. It was like a dead end, just woods past this church. So I was already like a little bit creeped out. I set up my tent. I'm trying to go to sleep, and I hear this huffing sound. And I've only heard this huffing sound in bears after spending time in Jackson Hole. The grizzly bears make this huffing sound. So I was like, there's no way. I don't know what this could be, but there's no way it's a bear. It's a deer. And I was just on edge for like 20 plus minutes just to find out that it was just a deer. So
a deer snorting at you going, what are you doing in my backyard?
Right.
Right. And so did you said you stopped at campgrounds, you stopped at churches. Did you ever actually camp on any of the beaches?
I did not. No, the closest that I got was, oh gosh, I was close to having to camp like on the beach itself in over by Goodhart. So just south of Wilderness. But a really kind couple took me in for the night, but I was getting ready to set up my tent on the beach, but didn't have to.
Nice.
Yeah.
Like you said, you've encountered unique people throughout the state, and it's just a great experience, especially when you can relay this about you hear some stories. And we're almost up to Mackinac, but we're coming up on our second break. But when we come back, we're gonna hit the Mackinac Bridge here, and then we'll continue our trip down the other side of Michigan.
All right, we're gonna step outside. We'll be right back after this.
PSE Archery has always dominated the speed category. Now, the most revolutionary cam system ever to hit the market has perfected the shooting experience. Introducing PSE's Evolve Cam System, featuring extremely high let-off capabilities and the smoothest draw cycle in history. No other cam system has ever delivered this level of total comfort and total control. Experience PSE. Experience performance.
All right, Danny, get out your trusty state map here. For those of you out of state that don't know, this is Michigan. Actually, this is Michigan. Here we go. So Alabaster's up in this side right here. So now we're gonna get all the way up here to
we're gonna get to
top.
the fudge capital of Michigan, Mackinac.
That's right.
And you made it to you made it up to Mackinac. You went through Oscoda, Alabaster. You went up through Alpena.
Rogers City.
What was that? Getting to that point of your trip, did you consider that halfway?
I did. Yeah, mileage-wise, that was about-ish halfway. But yeah, I definitely considered that the true halfway point, the true landmark.
What was the feeling like? I mean, because everybody that goes to Mackinac, they go for different reasons, but the one thing that, I was just up there kayaking 2 weekends ago on Lake Huron, up on St. Ignace side. And I've been across that bridge, I don't know how many times. But when we're crossing it, you just get this feeling that you just can't describe to anybody. When you saw the bridge, what was stirring inside of you?
That was such an emotional day. I had seen a quick glimpse of the bridge from my campsite the night before, so I could see it in the distance. And seeing that the night before I was going to reach it, it just got me so excited for the next morning. And I was able to spend the night before looking at the bridge in the distance and kind of reflecting on what I had accomplished thus far. And then walking into Mackinac City, it was kind of surreal. There was this sign, I think I posted it on one of my social media outlets, but there was this sign that was actually meant for the parking lot of the ferry. But this sign said, like, keep going, or like, you're almost there, or something like that.
Oh, man, that's cool.
Really fitting. Yeah. And yeah, like reaching the bridge and standing right by it. It was kind of a foggy, cloudy morning. And right as I was reaching the bridge, the sun came out, the fog lifted. I could see, most of the bridge stretching to the Upper Peninsula, and just so emotional. I knew in the back of my mind that I could do something like this, but, reaching that halfway point, such an incredible landmark. Just that knowledge that, like, I can do hard things. I have done hard things for the past, however many days. Mm-hmm. And, like, I'm here now. I can do the rest of this. Like, that was a true realization to me that, like, I've done this. I can do this. Like, I'm going to finish. I've got this.
So did you camp in Mackinac that night?
I actually stayed in Wilderness that night. So the bridge was just the halfway point of my day.
Have you been back to the bridge since you finished?
I have not. No, I'm hoping to sometime in the next couple of weeks, but I have not.
Okay. What do you think that might be like?
That's going to be really very interesting, I think. Visiting any of these little points along the beach has been an emotional experience. I've since been back to a couple parks along the west side, and there's tears every time, just thinking, like, the last time that I was in this place, like, my feet hurt and my back hurt and I was tired and I had bug bites and stuff like that. So going back and seeing these places is emotional, and I think the bridge would be the most emotional of them all. So
we take you down to Detroit and take you right in front of the Ren Center. That could be emotional.
Yeah. I'm actually going to be there on Friday, so I'm excited to go see that part of it too.
There you go. So how many days did it take you to get to Mackinac?
So I think I was at Mackinac on day 26-ish. Let's see. It was not day 26. It was.
So you're 26 days in. Okay, day 36. Yeah. So you're 36 days into this. The question is, at this time now, did you start? You prepared for this. Did you start seeing, like, weight loss? Your clothes sizes started changing during your walk. Did you try to figure out you needed to have more calories? What was your plan about that? Because you trained for it, but now you're actually doing it.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I started noticing that actually about 2 weeks in is when I first noticed, like, my hunger levels really spiking. So I tried to pay close attention to how calorie dense my food was. So that was something that I had put a little bit of thought into beforehand, but 14 days in, I'm starving all the time. So it's a matter of adding, like, olive oil to my food, or, eating a Snickers bar or peanut M&Ms or something like that every night. So for a while I was just trying to get as many calories in as possible. And then once I had the calorie piece mastered, then I started to clean up my diet a little bit better. I started eating more, like, cleaner protein bars. I started drinking, like, actual protein shakes, started mixing in greens powder, because I was noticing a pretty rapid weight loss. So I wanted to make sure that I was fueling my body better, so I was building muscle and holding on to some of that. I noticed, like, a definite energy dip about that 2 week in point as well. So just wanting to make sure that I could power through, especially as my mileage was increasing. So
okay, so with that being said, Mike has a picture of shoes. Did you notice your shoes breaking down, and how many pairs of shoes did you go through?
Yeah, so I went through 2 full pairs of shoes, like completely trashed. So it was about 2.5-ish or so.
Is that something you'd planned on? I mean, you knew you were going to wear. I mean, did you plan on wearing? Say, I'm going to wear out a pair of shoes. Didn't expect 2, or maybe you expected more.
Yeah, I expected around that number. So I wore, for the majority of the trip, I wore Ultra Lone Peaks. So big fan of those. I've worn them for the past couple of years. They are 0 drops, so I had to put like special insoles in them, especially as I'm walking on roads and I need a little bit more of that cushion. So I knew that I was going to go through at least 2 pairs, and I bought 3 before I started to make sure that I had enough.
And obviously, like you said, you'd taken a couple little long weekend breaks along the way. You didn't take 2 pairs of shoes with you. You didn't take all that food with you. You would stop and resupply, or like the long weekends, I imagine you'd resupply things as well, right?
Yeah, you're correct. I would do grocery store stops every like 3 to 6 days. And then, yes, coming home on those breaks is when I would switch out shoes or, some of the bigger items that I wasn't able to find at those little beach town grocery stores.
We got a picture of the food. You've got a tortilla. It looks like some rice in there. You got a pot there. Jet boil. I'm familiar with a jet boil. A lot of outdoorsmen and women use those. Kayakers, hikers, the whole 9 yards. Is that something that you made most of your food with? Or did you do some restaurant stopping and eating at restaurants as well?
I did a little bit of restaurant stuff. It was mostly curing and cooking my own food. But here and there, you just get a hankering for something, and you got to have it. If you're going through one of those big cities like the Bay City or Traverse City or whatever, it was so nice to be able to get, even if it was fast food. I didn't care. I just needed something.
So with that said, what was your favorite dining experience? Obviously, with your favorite, what was your worst one as well?
Favorite dining experience.
With the raccoon? No.
Honestly.
That's what he was there for. He was there for dinner.
Right. I would say that's tough because I have I was just drinking like instant coffee and eating like a package of like Quaker Oats apple cinnamon oatmeal or whatever that I had made. But I was sitting on the beach watching the sunrise and like just feeling so happy and like I was in the right place, etc. So like all things considered, that was probably one of my favorites. But honestly, I was staying with a couple who fed me. It was the one in Good Heart before I had to camp on the beach there. And I ate so much. I don't think I've ever eaten as much in my life as I did that evening. I was putting away like tons of pizza, breadsticks, a bunch of salad, a whole bunch of cookies afterwards. Like that was probably my favorite just because I could put so much away and not have to worry about it. So
right, exactly. And
that's awesome.
It is, it's fun. Oh, which leads us into the other question because you just mentioned it. East side sunrises or west side sunsets, which are better?
That's a tough question. I was pleasantly surprised by the east side sunrises. I'm definitely a morning person, but I'm gonna have to go with the west side sunset every time. I
was up on Lake Michigan in Manistee camping at their state campground last weekend, and I tell you, you cannot beat a sunset on Lake Michigan. I've seen sunrises on Lake Huron, but I gotta agree with you on that.
Yeah,
I think that comes down to the type of day you had, and it's almost like the ending of your day. It's like closing the chapter on the day. It just is one of those things. Sunrises are really cool, but sunsets are just like that. Yeah, it's good.
Okay, so I got a picture up now. I don't know which side this is on, but there's 3 people in a chair sitting at water's edge. Is that a sunrise or a sunset?
So that's a sunset, and that was actually on. That was at Taos.
Really?
Which I didn't expect, but yeah, the way that everything's all set up, you're at the edge of, you're on Taos Point, and the way that you're watching the sunset is actually like over that bay. So I didn't expect that, but that was actually the first sunset on the lake that I had seen that whole trip.
So is that there near the state park in the lighthouse?
Yep, exactly.
I never would have guessed that. I thought that was a Lake Michigan. I mean, I know exactly what you're talking about because we camped there last year. And matter of fact, that's where I've taken a lot of I took a lot of sunrise pictures.
Oh, okay.
Right there as well.
Right. So you've made it. You're now on the west side. You're heading down. You're going through Leelanau, Traverse City. You're over on that side of Empire. How was going through that area, getting down to mid?
Mid-Mitten, yeah, was absolutely incredible. My favorite part of the whole trip was the Lower Peninsula. I didn't expect that, but absolutely stunning. We grew up spending summers in Traverse City, so I was pretty familiar with some of that area there. Got to see some family friends. Stayed with some family as I was heading down south through that area. So it was a little bit of a mental reprieve again. One of the biggest challenges this whole trip was just being alone day after day. So when I could stay with family or friends, that was a nice little mental break. So that made that stretch really enjoyable. I loved that.
That's awesome, and it's one of those things is you did it before, but now you're doing it in a different way, and the dynamic has changed. But it's really cool, and now you're on the west side of the state making that trek down. To get to about Ludington was about how many days?
Ooh, Ludington, let's see. And Ludington is actually where my mom was able to join me, which was really, really fun. I enjoyed that a lot.
Okay, so you knew this ahead of time, obviously, that your mom was going to join you in Ludington. What, to you, mentally, what did that mean?
It was a couple things. So first off, having my mom, like somebody who raised me to love the outdoors, she rode her bike from Grand Rapids to meet me in Ludington. So wow. She's, bike touring. She's in her 60s. So, to have her take such an interest in my trip and be so passionate about what I was doing, and for her to have her own passions about the outdoors, for her to join me doing something like that, being in the outdoors, doing something we both love, was absolutely incredible. I am so lucky to have family, somebody who's so close to me who has that much of a passion for it. And then again, just that mental break, having somebody to talk to at camp, being able to sit and talk and catch up with somebody who's familiar to you. I loved the strangers. I loved meeting new people, but it was just a really nice break to have somebody that close to me with me.
And that's one of the things is you're taking this journey. We talked about this in the beginning. The mental, starting out the day, midday, end day, and then when you get to a point that you're like, oh wait, that's family, that's my mom. I'm sure there was some tears shed at that point to collect your thoughts.
Yes, definitely, absolutely. And it took me it was 54 days to get to Ludington.
54 days.
54 days of walking in there.
And then you start to see the finish line in sight.
Oh, for sure. Like she said, she made it halfway to the Mackinac. That was an uplift. Now you're on the downside of the west side of the state. You're at Ludington. You're heading for the finish line of Indiana.
Speaking of that side of the state, actually, I'll tell you what. Let's take our last break, because I want to say what time we got left, and we'll expand on a couple things here coming back out of this. So let's take our last break. When we come back, we will wrap up and see where things lead us here in the discussion. We'll be right back after this.
Acceleration is part of PSE's DNA. PSE pioneered the speed movement. Now they've developed the vapor category to help you find the most powerful bows on the market to fit you.
High speed equates to intense power and building the momentum you need to be successful. Are you a vapor shooter? Find out at psearchery.com.
Welcome back. Last segment of the show. When we went to break, we're talking about coming down the home stretch here, coming down from Ludington, and I started looking at some of the photos that I saved here for the end, and to me, it's the iconic west side of Michigan photos. Coming down that shoreline. You got the high bank cliffs. That side of the state, has taken a lot of beating here in the last 5-10 years. High water, a lot of erosion. In a couple pictures here, you can kind of see some of that. What was that like coming down through there? Was there anything that really struck you?
Yeah, that was really interesting. Not living in the state for the past 6-ish years or so, I'd heard about high water levels, but hadn't really seen any of it in action. To walk through some of that and see people's, be climbing over somebody's collapsed deck, and there's rusty nails and large slabs of concrete and stuff like that. You can see where it's fallen off the dune side. It was pretty astonishing. It was really interesting to see some of that. You can see a lot of people trying to rebuild. I walked past several different homes in which new things were being put in to help stop that erosion. It was fascinating to see some of that.
Yeah, it just goes to me. It shows the raw power of Mother Nature and what she can do.
Absolutely.
That's it, right? That's just messing with Mother Nature, and she's gonna have the last say. Unfortunately, down in Florida.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, exactly.
So you're on your way. And how long did your mom join you from Ludington down?
So she was just with me until the outlet of White Lake, so just north of Muskegon. So she was with me for, I think it was 3 nights, and then my dad picked us up there, and we both went home for a little bit of a break. I got dropped off back in Muskegon and finished out the last 10 days.
So 10 days ago from Muskegon down to Indiana. When you went back out, you're basically looking at the finish line. I mean, it's still a long ways, but what's the mindset at that point? What are you really thinking about? What's playing through your head as you're walking those last 10 days?
Yeah, I pictured that last 10 days so much, especially during those first few weeks of this trip, and it was nothing like what I expected. I thought that being back by, beaches and towns that I had grew up visiting, I thought that would feel I thought it would feel so good. I thought it would feel familiar. I thought it would feel exciting, walking through Grand Haven, which, I spent so many summers there as a teenager. It was the exact opposite. I had a really hard time. The last 10 days, I was homesick. I was ready to be done. And yeah, it was a little bit tough, like walking through these places that I had spent so much fun time in, and now like I'm miserable. I'm hot. The temperature had been increasing. It was super humid. I was kind of miserable. And the only thing keeping me going was that finish line. And about 4 days into that last stretch, I had, I kind of had to shake myself up a little and say, like, you have 7 more days out here. Enjoy it. You're never going to be in this position ever again. Like, make the most of this. You're so lucky to have had the experience that you've had. You're so lucky to have these last couple days, like make the most out of them. So I was able to change that mindset a little bit. And, the last 4 days were really surreal. The last full day that I spent out there didn't feel like the last full day. So
what do you mean by that?
Yeah, I don't know. It didn't feel like it was ending the next day. I just felt like I was going to walk another 18 miles, have a good night's sleep, eat some more backpacking food, walk another 20 something miles. I just felt like it was going to go on forever. So when I started that last day, that's when it really hit me that, these are the last couple steps.
And where did you end your excursion?
So a little town called Michiana is like right on the state line there. So I actually ended on the beach, and then we had to drive like 3 miles to actually get to like the Indiana state line sign. We just had to drive inland. But yeah, right in that little town there.
Awesome. And now with that being said, you've now completed your journey. What was your total miles of your total trip around?
Yeah, so it ended up being 1,044 miles. There is a 10-mile stretch on the east side that I haven't completed. And then there's about a 7-mile stretch just north of Traverse City that I haven't completed. So those will hopefully be wrapped up by the end of the calendar year. So I can, put a full bow on the Lower Peninsula.
If you don't mind me asking, what was the nexus of not being able to complete those 2 little stretches?
Yes, the one on the east side, I was getting picked up at the end of the day. I had to go home for a wedding, so it was the absolute furthest that I could walk in one day. It was like at 22 miles, I think. And then getting dropped back off, I was being dropped off just south of Rogers City. And camping-wise and plan-wise, I was actually seeing a friend in Rogers City on a specific day. So couldn't complete that 10 miles. And then Traverse City was very similar. I had a very specific day that I needed to get picked up on. And so those 7 miles I couldn't walk in one day.
So it was mainly logistics.
Exactly.
It wasn't a barrier thing, a reason you couldn't complete it. It was just the logistics of how far you could walk and give the given time.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
Yep.
She's detail oriented. It wasn't in the plan.
1,044 miles.
Right. Did you stay in any one place longer because you thought it was just great to be there?
Yeah, I planned all the nights beforehand. I always had my nights booked out at least 2 weeks in advance. But I reserved an additional night in Wilderness State Park because it's my favorite. So I stayed there 2 nights.
Good choice. Great place.
There you go. Would you do it again? Would you do it again if you had sponsors?
I don't know. Probably not. It was such a special adventure to do, the first time exactly as it was. So I don't know. I kind of want to keep it with exactly what it was.
What about Upper Peninsula maybe?
Upper Peninsula is TBD. We will see. I've started the plans and it's possible. And now it's just a matter of figuring out when. So
it's not a no. It's
not a no.
TBD.
So that was the next question. What's next? So we're going to go with on the assumption, kind of looking at the UP. Would you start from the north side and come to the south side or go vice versa?
Yeah, so I would start, I haven't looked at the exact city names, but yeah, I would start right by, I would go along the southern,
You'd start southern side first?
Correct. Yep. And then head around to the north.
Lake Michigan side, go to Superior.
You would start by down in the Menominee area and come up and end up all the way over in Ironwood.
Yep.
There you go.
There you go. You better keep us informed of when you're doing this, because you're now getting into what I like and hearing about this. Find out when you're going to do this would be awesome, because that walking Lake Superior, it was got to be amazing. But to do all of it would be just... Did you figure out if it would be the same amount of days?
So the mileage-wise is actually going to be relatively similar to what the Lower Peninsula was. And then time-wise, I might be able to do it in a little bit shorter of time. I'll prepare a little bit differently for the Upper Peninsula. I hope to go into it with being able to do a couple more miles right off the bat on average than I did with the Lower Peninsula. So,
okay, so you change it up a little bit. So now overall, you've done the Lower Peninsula. You look back at it. The couple of questions that are coming in. Relatively, how much did it cost you in gear, food, and for the entire trip?
Sure. So I would say, I haven't looked at like exact numbers, but I would say between 6,000 and 8,000, all considering like the gear purchases I had to make, what I already had, and then between food, lodging, etc. Right there between 6 and 8 is a pretty good guess.
Well, talking about the gear, what you already have and what you took with you. I got the picture up now. You've got it all spread out on the floor. I assume these are the things that were in your pack that you carried with you on a daily basis. Obviously the shoes we understand, the trekking poles we understand, the sleeping bag. But what are some of the things in there that we might not expect?
Sure. One of the biggest questions that I got is how I charge my phone. So I was lucky enough to stay, a lot of campgrounds had electric hookups, but I did also have like an Anchor charger block. So I could charge my phone up to 3 full times off of that little charger block. I think something that people don't expect, who might not be familiar with the outdoors, is sometimes the necessity to use the restroom when you're not by restrooms. So having to bring like a potty trowel, things to pack in and pack out toilet paper, stuff like that. So I think those are the two biggest. I brought, as far as protection goes, I brought like a small knife with me, and then I did bring a canister of bear spray as well. Okay, that was questions. Oh, you hit one. Water to hydrate yourself. How did you didn't carry gallons at a time. How did you get through that? Yeah, so I was usually carrying like just over, depending on where I was, just over 1 liter to 1.5 liters. So I was able to fill up my my water bottles at the campground in the morning, and then I did bring a water filter with me. So sometimes I was able to stop and refill. Sometimes people would give me water, and then sometimes I had to filter from the lakes.
That was going to be a question if you took a water filter with a filter straw.
I would think so. Yeah. With being right there, it'd be a freebie. Yeah. You don't have that extra weight, and then all of a sudden, and I assume, especially as you said, the temperatures were rising, humidity's going up. You're coming down the other side of the state. Your water intake was getting more and more as you went. Definitely, yes.
Well, the one thing, we talked to several people, and we had them on the show talking about going up to Isle Royale and camping for a week, 2 weeks. And that was one thing I was really interested in. I was like, okay, the potty trowel and the TP, that makes complete sense, and it's, you got to make sure you've got provisions for things that most people that don't know the outdoors don't even really think about. And you said you come down the west side of the state and you're coming down and it's getting humid. Bugs. I mean, you had to have bug spray, I imagine. Even something as simple as chapstick. Things that in sunscreen to keep you protected.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, all those like little tiny details. And those were the things that I was scrambling, the last 2 or 3 days before I left, just to make sure that I had all those tiny little things, especially that bug spray. You hit the nail on the head. Absolutely.
Especially if you were just right at that hour when the Michigan mosquitoes come out and you're by the lake and you're
carry you away.
Right. But it sounds like you have that all under control. It's just a matter of having it.
Mm-hmm, exactly. And something that I didn't realize until probably about a month before I left is permethrin and the ability to spray your clothes or get them treated with permethrin for tick issues. And that was huge. I am so glad that I took advantage of that. Definitely saw some ticks, never had any issues. And I think a lot of that was thanks to spraying all of my clothes and a couple of key pieces of gear with that permethrin. So.
Absolutely. That is literally a lifesaver, not going to lie. Yeah. I mean, as on the hunting side for us, we use it whether we're spring turkey or October. You gotta don't need that happening and getting into that problem.
Is there anything that you needed that you didn't take with you that you wish you'd have had, now that you look back? Or that you picked up after the fact?
Not too much. I did not prepare adequately enough for May and early June as I was heading north. So my parents and my boyfriend actually met me when I was in that Detroit area. They stayed with me for a couple nights, helped to kind of shuttle me around. And my mom brought me a hat, an extra pair of socks, and like a puffy down jacket. If I didn't have that puffy jacket, I don't know what I would have done. And she just decided to bring that like on a whim. And I'm lucky that she did. But otherwise, I was pretty prepared.
Okay, so that leads me to another question. Obviously, Mom saved the day again. So, Mom and Dad, were they ever worried for your safety? And if so, like, what was their voicing their concerns of, are you out of your mind or what's going on?
Yeah, definitely some hesitation. My mom has been the biggest cheerleader for this project since the beginning. So she was always like really gung-ho, as long as she had my location shared on my iPhone. So she could always see my location. So could my dad. He was a little bit more hesitant, I think. But as we talked more about the trip, the realities, and the fact that almost every question he asked me, I already had an answer for. I had already thought through those details. I think that really put him at ease. So yeah, the ability to see that location, the knowledge that honestly, like, I had spent the past 6 years, a 26-hour drive away. And now even at the furthest point, I was only, 3-hour drive from where they were. They could get to me in no time. I think that helped. And then the biggest concern, I think, at first was that Detroit area. So the fact that they were able to meet me, help do some shuttling. And honestly, like, I didn't have a single issue. There was people sitting out in their porches in those South Detroit neighborhoods, just waving hi, saying, hey, God bless. It was fantastic. So I think after the first week or two out there, him hearing my experiences kind of put him at ease that all was going to be well.
You mentioned you had a journal. You plan on writing a book.
I would like to do some sort of longer format publication. I'm not sure exactly what that looks like just yet. I think it would be interesting to, write a book someday, whether that's just on this adventure, whether I combine it with Upper Peninsula and do a full publication like that. We'll see, but it's definitely not out of the question.
I think it would be awesome if you did 2 books, one for the lower, one for the upper, and then a third book, which you kind of combined both events into a third book.
You going into publishing now?
No, I'm just thinking as the questions are rolling in, and just that theory of what you almost could think this out as you're walking, right? It's amazing. That's awesome. Nancy Jackson. She was totally going to do this, but she only has 5,000.
Oh, you can do it.
She didn't go to the gym tonight.
Right?
So she's got to get back in the gym before we turn her loose on a 1,000-mile trek.
Right? But I'm excited to hear about this Upper Peninsula coming up, and man, congratulations on doing this. This was just phenomenal to plan this out, take care of it, do it, and see the entire state. And that's kind of funny. She said when she was out in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, and we didn't even get there, 26-hour ride.
Yeah.
But anywhere in Michigan, she was like 3 hours away.
Yeah, you can go snatch your kids and save them. I mean, that was the big thing for college for us when some of the kids went away to school. I was like, they're only 2.5 hours away. I can go snatch them, and get them home if something happens. But
absolutely, my daughter started off at Central Michigan, ended up in Chicago, and it's one of those things. But I hope to hear more. Is there anything you want to talk about that we didn't cover?
Not too much. No, I think just kind of using Nancy's last comment there, like as far as like financial or like physical ability to do it, like I just encourage people to get outside and like give it a go. It's not something that I thought I could ever complete, and there we go. Like I did it. I did the research, etc. So yeah, I just want to encourage people to get outside in whatever way feels good for them. It might not be a 1,000-mile backpacking trip, but
we had on a person that did do-it-yourself hunts, and they went up to Alaska, and you did yours walking around Michigan, and basically your messages were the same.
Yep.
Do your homework and just do it.
Just do it, because, life's too short. Everybody's got a bucket list of things they want to do. But you never know when you're going to get that call, and it's your last day. I mean, you can plan everything out, and you might not ever get, if you keep putting it off and putting it off, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But, after you sit back and you look at this now, so that was, you finished first week of August, so now we're September, first week. So it's 2 months out, you finished. Looking back, how did this change you? What's the big takeaway for you?
Yeah, is mostly confidence. Looking back, and I think the Mackinac Bridge, as I was saying, was really solidified in my mind that I could do hard things and I was going to finish it. That's compounded at the end of all of this. It's really easy for me to look back on the 3 months and look at it as just like, I did this, it was 1,044 miles, like neato, put a bow on it and put it off to the side. But when I have conversations like this, when I, talk to people in my everyday life, or when I even just look back at some of the journal entries and I'm reminded of the minutia of every single one of those 67 days and the 18 months prior to that where I was planning this thing, and the courage that it took to quit my job, to move back home, the courage it took to take that first step. I think it's just the confidence that like I can do these difficult things. I can do what I set my mind to do. And whether that's an outdoor endeavor, whether that's, a hard conversation that I have to have in my life, or whether that's taking a new job, whatever it is, like I have the capacity to do it. It just restored my faith in humanity. As I mentioned before, I met so many kind people. There are wonderful, wonderful people out there, and it's a privilege to be able to go out and talk to them and meet them. So
when you're in the outdoors and you meet people, whether it's hunting, fishing, horseback riding, canoeing, whatever, the people in Michigan, I hate to just limit it to Michigan, but outdoors people who love the outdoors, we may not always agree on the same things and the way to do things, but the one thing about it, we all have a genuine love for the outdoors, and that's the one common bond. And people, I still got faith in humanity that people are genuinely good at heart and will do whatever they can to help their fellow man or woman.
Yep, I completely agree. Yeah, and getting outdoors in whatever way that looks like for you, I think it's sometimes a little bit intimidating to look at the different barriers, whether it's the cost of the gear or like the physical ability or what have you. But truly, even if you're just going outside for like a quick stroll around your neighborhood, like people in the outdoors and people who are out there doing what they love and connecting with nature, I think that does something to the human spirit. So
sunrises and sunsets.
Right, exactly. A couple quick questions. Did you ever lose GPS signal?
There was a couple times where I didn't have phone signal. I was using mostly Google Maps when it was like road walking, and then I was using Gaia GPS, which is an app that I had on my phone, and that was mostly reliable except for when it led me to be like thigh deep in a swamp just north of Megalodon State Park.
Oh no! Whoops. Okay, so then the next question was, did you get lost at any point?
Not true lost like I thought I was going to. Again, like being in the swamp thigh deep, I had no idea where I was and had no phone signal, and I just had to figure that out, but that was the only time, thankfully.
Wow. Yeah, something's a little wrong there. It's like It's like listening to Google when she tells you to turn left and you're staring down a dead end road, right?
or down a train track,
right?
It's like, hey, wait a minute, this is not right.
A compliment to you. Mark Coleman says you're very well spoken.
Oh, thank you, Mark. I appreciate that. Thank you.
I see a book coming out of this.
So, if you're not planning to do this in 2023, Upper Peninsula, you gotta walk the bridge next year just to say you connected the walk from the lower to the upper.
There you go.
That's a great idea. Absolutely. I should do that.
And then you can say, okay, I walked the bridge, which is kind of weird how they do it now. But that says, okay, that's your gateway to the UP.
Yeah, that's right.
I love that. I hadn't thought about that. I'm for sure going to do that. I think that's a great idea.
I tell you what, they got it weird now how they do it. You walk to the middle of the bridge and you walk back.
What?
Yeah.
That's not right.
It's weird.
Yeah, that I've walked it 3-4 times. Yeah, it was always across.
So,
oh well, I didn't know that.
So
you have to walk it twice,
right? It's all had to do with COVID. And,
oh boy.
Yeah.
Well, maybe they'll change it now that
hopefully
that's kind of subsided.
Maybe if we tell, she gets a hold of the bridge authority and says, "I'm coming up there," they might change it.
Yeah, they'll do an escort.
They might.
There you go.
So let me look real quick for the questions. I think we're all good on questions.
Social media. Where can people connect with you on social media and maybe read or see more photos or what have you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been directing people to my website. That's the easiest place because my social media is all linked there. But it's lakeboundmi.net is the website. And then my name is Haley Andrus, HALEYANDRUS. Feel free to search for me on Instagram, Facebook, etc. I'm happy to connect with people. I love to talk about this, as you guys can see. So happy to do as much as I can.
Oh, we've got he's got the
lakeboundmi.net, right? Got a picture of the lake bound and adventure around the coast of Michigan's Lower Peninsula.
You got it.
All right.
There's the outline of the trip.
Yep, we got the website up. We're taking a look at it right now. So if people want to go on over to there and see why in big letters, right?
Because
she can.
It's like I've always said, when Nancy and I we'll see a photo or somebody's taking a trip or see a new body of water or something, and it's like, well, if there's water there, it's meant to be paddled. You got to get out and paddle it and kayak it. So, no, hats off to you, man. That is just, I'm still just flabbergasted that 1,044 miles. It's incredible. It's an incredible feat, and your parents have got to be proud as hell, that you've accomplished a monumental feat like that. That is incredible.
Exactly. Congratulations again.
Absolutely.
And Nancy says if she does that, she can kayak under the bridge with her.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, my girlfriend, she actually paddled across the Straits of Mackinac. It was before we met, and so now she wants me to go with, and I'm starting to get into the big water and learn about it and feel more comfortable. So we're talking about it. It'll happen one day. It won't happen this weekend. I can tell you that. Right? So it's going to take a little while.
And for everybody out there, Mark posted the link in our chat, so you can go there right through. If you're watching us if you're listening to the podcast, go to the live feed here on Facebook, or you'll see it in a couple days on YouTube.
There you go. So I tell you what, we've kept you here long enough. Actually, we've ran this segment real long. So we're going to wrap up the show. Hang on with us here. When we're done, we'll chat real quick and let you go. But for those of you who are listening to it, the show on the podcast, obviously you need to see the photos. You need to watch the live show, so come over to Facebook or YouTube where you can catch us there and take a look and see everything we were talking about. And if you're actually listening to us off iTunes, please give us a review there. That helps us and helps the people who support us. And for those of you who are watching on the live stream here, make sure you go over to Haley's social media page. Give her a like, follow, share there as well. Share the show and give us a like, follow, and share as well. Make sure you smash that button and give us a like. So
absolutely.
Next week
we're open.
We're open.
We are open.
Okay, so we'll come up with something to talk about next week.
We got plenty to talk about.
We got stuff that we've done this summer we haven't even touched yet.
Right, so. And we can always talk about that wonderful app we have and what people think about that.
There you go.
But we can talk about, there's a couple things in the fire, trying to get some interviews. It's going to be kind of hard right now because everybody's in the middle of hunting season, obviously.
Absolutely. So that'll do it for us this week, folks. Y'all tune back in again next Wednesday, 7:30. We'll be right here. As always, y'all take care. And if you're out in the woods and you're bow hunting, make sure you wear your safety vest and use your lifeline when you're climbing into your tree stand, because we don't want to hear about any accidents.
That's right. And if you're walking around the state of Michigan, be safe.
There you go. That'll do it for us this week, folks.
This episode was brought to you by PSC Archery,
Deer Camp Coffee,
Buck Baits,
JPO Game Calls,
The Island Armory,
Packer Max,
Sunrise Archery,
and C3 Better the Hunt Technology.
Thanks for listening, and join us again here next week. Until then, remember, as we always like to say, if you're out on the water or in the woods, shoot straight and be safe. Until next week on the Up North Journal.